Right. So, penultimate topic. Quite a simple one, really. So obviously we had the release of Roadhouse recently. You know, check it out. It's available in no movie theaters in your local area or any other theater on the planet for that matter. Do you remember? Yeah, when do you remember when straight to home movies were a signifier of how much something sucks?
Yes.
I just want to say, I just want to say that.
Yep.
And before the trolls come out and say it was made with streaming in mind, it categorically wasn't. You know, it was very well publicized that like the cast and the team, you know, they pushed very heavily to get a theatrical release, and they were told to eat a dong. So, anyway, so with McGregor's appearance in the spotlight again, it's obviously brought up some obvious questions. When's he going to be back in the octagon again? And actually doing what he's supposed to be fucking good at. So yeah, how do you guys see this playing out? What we think he's good at. So how do we see this playing out? What happens with McGregor?
Man, that dude got too much money. He got too much money to care about this stuff. And he's trying to get himself up to care about it. He really is trying to. But it's just, it's not as important. Winning doesn't impact him as much as it used to. Like it used to be, it's almost like a drug, you know, like, and he's had the drug so much and he's getting winning in so many different areas. Like winning in the octagon just probably doesn't hit like it used to. I think that what he's saying is true as far as like what he wants to do, but there's so many different obstacles that have come in the way, and a lot of that is successes in other areas, the excess that he lives by, and you know, he's got 4 kids now. Like he's got a lot of stuff going on outside of the octagon that are going to just be more important than getting himself into a training camp, getting his diet right, and living that martial artist lifestyle to be prepared for a fight. So and the fight's going to be for peanuts compared to things that he can do outside of the octagon. So nah, man, I mean, I think that I honestly feel like he's going to fulfill the contract that he has, because he does respect Dana and Hunter and more so the Fertittas. But I think that's the end. I think that's, and honestly at this point, like the UFC, I say we as fans, we've been doing okay without him being a constant presence. We'll be okay after that too. So I think that these 2 fights are going to be the end, and I don't think that I don't think both of these fights happen this year either. So we're good, and so is he.
So you think he sees out the contract?
I think he sees out the contract.
What do you reckon, CJ?
I agree with everything. I'm just wondering how he sees out the contract. Yeah, I think that's tough for him to do, for everything that Jax just said. I want to see him, but the old Conor, not, you know, what he's become.
Yeah, I think all of us want that, even if we've, you know, separated from him a little bit in terms of how we used to feel about him. I think we all would want to see the old one back. You know, I think for me, I've kind of been saying this consistently since he shattered his leg, like kindling. And I think everything that has been said since that has led me to believe one thing. I don't think we're ever going to see Conor McGregor fight in the UFC octagon again. Like, you know, he's been healthy in relative terms for like a year now. He's been publicly coming out and either announcing a fight is happening or saying the UFC is blackballing him. We've even had Diaz, of all people, come out on his side as well. And yet everything he says is being rebuffed by the UFC. Chandler's come out and denied that the fight is close to being made, which has also been echoed by Dana. I think that the UFC doesn't want to fuck with him anymore. And I think it comes down to a number of reasons. I think the UFC has evolved beyond stars that can make bigger demands and risk changing the general landscape. I think Conor's obviously looked like a mess the last year. I mean, the public displays of intoxication, the constant legal issues, most of which we don't know the full extent of as well. So this, this issue has obviously been on Conor as well. I think that this ultimately comes down to what we've just witnessed with the class action lawsuit, to bring it back to that. I think this is about money. Like, I think the findings of that case, if nothing else, has shed light on exactly how much the company was profiting at fighters' expense. And I think that's what it comes down to now. I think that Conor, he was thinking he was getting paid well, and he was getting millions and he was getting bits of the pay-per-view sales. He was thinking, wow, I'm making a lot of money here. And then the figures have come out and he's realized that he was getting paid pennies on the dollar and is now demanding what he's worth now. And the UFC have just navigated this, and they're no longer star-driven anymore, and they certainly don't want to be. And I think the UFC are not going to budge to his demands. And I think that Conor is unlikely to lower them much based on what he knows now. He probably feels like he's owed something and that he should get it back now. He's past his prime years, and I know that he's still under contract. I don't think the UFC want to pay him. I don't think they want him going elsewhere to put the spotlight on another organization. Definitely not. So I think this doesn't get resolved. And I think this ends up going... It wouldn't surprise me if it ends up going into a legal battle of sorts and ends up in the ugliest way possible. That's truly what I think is going to happen. Because the way that things have played out in the last year, they're either not communicating, or they are, and something's gone horribly wrong, because they seem to be saying contrary things. And yeah, I honestly think that we don't see him again. I just think that all roads are pointing towards that, and maybe we shouldn't. I mean, if any of us had this much money, I wouldn't go in there and get my fucking head caved in, get slapped around and get my leg broken.
Nah, I'd be good. I mean, what's the point? Be honest. Unless it's just, I want to make another, $15 to $20 million. And that's counting, the possibility of pay-per-views, which may or may not be there, because to be honest, he's not as hot as he was when, the Khabib thing happened. And just to go to straight MMA terms, he's coming off of 2 losses. He hasn't won a fight since 2020. And it was against somebody who's been retired. So, I mean, what are we really looking at? What does he really want? And the 2 fights that come up to me, and this is why I say 2 fights and you're done, because really nothing else makes sense, is you got this Michael Chandler thing, because you got to go ahead and see it through. You've done all these things. So you got to go ahead and get that out the way. And then Nate Diaz. Bring Nate back for 1 fight. Go ahead and do it before Nate, doesn't look like Nate any more than he already doesn't look like Nate. Because he's about to go and box Masvidal, and Masvidal he's slow, but he's still faster than Nate. So, I mean...
You know how that goes.
I actually was thinking you were going to say Masvidal, because that's probably what should have happened a long time ago.
They lost that fight. The Masvidal fight was there for them. They missed the boat on that one.
Yeah.
That would have been massive.
Masvidal against him for the BMF would have been huge.
That would have been massive. That would have been massive. They really fucked that up. But I will say as well, you mentioned that you're not sure if Conor has the drive or anything to come back.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about pay-per-view points.
Yeah, no, I think that part of the reason why he's spiraling the way he is outside of the octagon now is because of this impasse. I think he wants to come back, and I think he needs fighting in order to be on the straight and narrow. And what worries me for Conor McGregor's not just his career in the sport, but for his health and his mentality in general, is I can see this getting worse for him if he doesn't get a fight soon. Because I think he needs it more than the UFC does at this point, because he is falling off a cliff the more and more we see him. He just looks like a broken person at the moment. He's either doing things he shouldn't be doing, but he's certainly not concentrating on things that you should be focusing on when you think you're about to get into a cage fight soon.
It's true. Him and Bruno Mars look a lot alike right now. Both doing the same things.
That's not a guy you want to look like.
I guess I gotta look it up. I don't know what's going I think that's why he's so amped up on Roadhouse. If you see any of his interviews, the way he talks about it is very similar to the way he talks about MMA. Really, really high on just
Yeah.
the feeling of
And I mean, I
doing
didn't enjoy the
something.
movie, but a lot of people did. I mean, there were
I liked
certainly
it.
it was split. There were a lot of people that were
Yeah.
like, we'd like to see him do this again. So
Yeah,
there's definitely
yeah.
things for him to do.
He can literally play the same character in several movies, and he would do just fine.
And people would watch it.
Of what I
100%.
saw, I think that he can definitely parlay that into a film career for sure.
Yeah.
He doesn't
And
have to
will
be a
get
great
better.
actor.
I mean, people.
So
No, he doesn't.
yeah.
In fact, it's better if he's not. It's more amusing if he's terrible, and just being himself out there and it being a bit cheesy. I'm all for that. You know. But yeah, I do think this is worrying for him, and he needs something.